Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So we're just here for another craft with me process video of the Mother Goose journal that we've been working on together. This is going to be part 7, so grab your stash, grab a cup of tea and let's get started and do some crafting. So when I finished up on the last one, we had just completed this single page here, and we also did a double page, which was this one. So today I thought what we'll do, if there's time, which I'm hoping that there will be, I thought we'll obviously complete the facing page to this single page and possibly do the page after that. So I have actually popped some bits and bobs kind of, you know, that hopefully I will use roughly on the pages so that, you know, just to speed the process up a little bit. So let's get cracking. Right, my tripod, not tripod, my iPad's up again, so hopefully kind of you'll all be able to see kind of well what we're doing. So here on this, you know, page, I have obviously distress inked all around it. I did that last time when I distress inked this one. And I thought I would use this, which is a kind of fold out booklet. So I'm going to kind of go for that here somewhere on the page. Just going to move a couple of these lumpy bits. In fact, I'm going to move all of this, but I'm just going to pop it all to one side so I can just grab it all back in a moment when we come to do those pages. Just put them up there. Right, so I'm just kind of playing around, and I've got this calendar which I've stamped here on this buff coloured cardstock. It doesn't matter that the back is patterned because obviously that's going to be stuck on the page and kind of covered up. So I think we'll kind of go for something like that. And then obviously we've been using these flowers that I have fussy cut out, which just kind of tie the pages in really well together. So I thought we'll kind of have a couple of those, or, you know, some of those somewhere around the page. So I've got some next to me. I'm just literally having a look to see whether I've got a smallish section. So what I might do is actually fussy cut around this, so as I've got a smaller chunk. So I just kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, because obviously once it's distress inked and actually stuck down on the page, you know, the page is going to hopefully look so pretty anyway, and have such a lot of details on it that I don't think you're really going to kind of notice if it's not cut, you know, absolutely perfectly around a leaf or a petal or something like that. So I've just tidied up that the other edge of that, because otherwise I will forget when I go to grab and use that later. So maybe kind of like that. And obviously I've got my distress ink here, and actually Laura did mention yesterday, oh, I've only just worked out, yes, it's Vintage Photo that I am using. So I should have really said that in the beginning. Apologise for that. So yes, I'm just using that. She also did mention tea dye, which yes, I use that sometimes and I quite like that. I did used to use, I think it was called antique linen, which I did really like, but it's got a little bit of a green kind of tinge to it, and I think I perhaps really liked it because perhaps at the time I was using quite a bit of kind of pale greeny coloured papers, which seemed to go really nicely with it. However, when I have tried it lately, it does seem just very green. And the other one that was quite similar to that was old paper, which again used to use that and seemed to kind of have gone off that really. But I did used to quite like those colours, and I do occasionally still use them. So I'm just placing things around the page to kind of see what else might look kind of pretty on here. So obviously we could have a bit of lace somewhere, or a bit of trim. So I've got this tiny bit of crocheted lace, just kind of left really from yesterday, I think, the last time that I worked on this. We could have that there, or I've actually got this little bit of soft net, which I did try and use, I think, the other day. I couldn't kind of quite get it to sort of match up anywhere, but maybe we could have that kind of along here, kind of like that, maybe looks quite nice. Just kind of playing here and, you know, wondering about things. Could have a journaling spot. Now on this page, when I finished this page last time, I was debating on whether or not to have this journaling spot somewhere, or I think I was debating over a butterfly. I still haven't quite decided, so I might just leave the butterfly. I don't think I like the journaling spot much, but I might just leave the butterfly there for a minute while I kind of have a think about it. So what I might do is kind of glue these flowers on, because I do really like those. Now I have got the same glue that I was having trouble with last time, which is still causing me trouble and kind of still quite blocked up. So I have been keeping it with a kind of pin in the end. So I'm just shaking it there. Hopefully I'm going to kind of be able to get glue out of it with not too much trouble, but it's frustrating because actually once they get clogged up, they never seem to unclog, if you see what I mean. You know, they're absolutely fine, but the first time that they get clogged, that's it. They seem to then get clogged forevermore after that. Now I have got some tissue here, so I'm just going to kind of wipe the edges around. Trying not to be such a messy crafter while I'm doing my videos, at least. Even if I am a messy crafter kind of without the camera on, I'll at least try and be a little bit better behaved kind of during the videos. So there's that flower there. I quite like that. Let me just put my stick pin back into the glue, because that will kind of dry out very quickly, I'm sure, which would then be very annoying. So what I might do is pop this trim kind of on the edge, and what I might do is actually do that with my hot glue, just because I did say yesterday I'm going to try and obviously speed up a little bit with this series, because I think maybe it's getting a little bit tedious for people to be watching. So I'm just going to kind of, you know, just try and use anything that might speed it up a bit, really. And hot glue, that's always a great way for speeding up processes, isn't it? So I'll just put a bit more on there. I do find hot glue really useful. Right, just trim that at the edge. So we could have it like that. And then obviously I've got the other part of the flowers that I cut off, so we could have some of those down here. And also today I did bring my huge bag of buttons back, the ones that I just bought the other day, because again, in my mission to kind of start using some buttons, I thought, oh, I'll bring them along and just see whether I can use any. It's slightly annoying because obviously the smaller ones fall to the bottom of the bag, and obviously I don't want to be pouring them all out here with everybody watching, because it would be incredibly noisy and pretty boring to watch, I must say. But obviously that means the ones that are kind of on the top of the, or at the top of the bag, tend to be quite big, which aren't necessarily kind of what I'm wanting, because these pages, you know, they're kind of quite delicate really looking. They're not kind of big chunky images. I'll just see whether I can salvage any from the bottom kind of the bag, you know, easily enough. Just have a look, you know, because I just thought I could maybe kind of pop a button or two somewhere. That one's quite nice, isn't it? It's just got a pinky colour. Oh, I think I'm still going to struggle to use them. Right, I'm going to put them down to one side for the moment, because I don't want to get too waylaid and kind of delayed in what I'm doing. Right, just checking that that flower's stuck on there well enough. So I'm going to distress ink these flowers for if we want to use them. I just thought they kind of added a bit of colour down the bottom, and kind of tied things in quite nicely to the rest of the journal. So I'm just going to kind of pop them here. I mean, we could have them kind of going underneath, so they kind of sit on top of that, oops, booklet when you fold it up. That's quite nice. So maybe like that. And obviously then I've got this little bow, which I could pop here. That would look quite pretty, I think. So I might just go with that. So just going to distress ink this around the edges. Like that. And then I'm going to glue that down. And again, I might just glue that with my hot glue, just because I'm trying to speed up. And obviously because this has got this raised kind of sparkly pattern, it does glue with my tacky glue, but obviously it needs quite a lot of holding down because it's kind of, you know, raised and flat, if you see what I mean. And just for, you know, speed purposes, I'm going to just use the hot glue because obviously I don't want to kind of delay this process any further by, you know, having to wait for the glue to dry. So just going to pop that down. I'm just going to kind of really press it so that it's, you know, not too bumpy from the hot glue. So just like that. There we go. I'm just going to quickly pop some of this glue just under the corner, which seemed a bit resistant there. Just hold it for a couple of moments. Put that stick pin back into the glue. Right, so then I wanted to have that like that. So again, I'm just going to use my hot glue to actually stick this down. I might pop another bit of glue under there in a moment. So again, I'm just debating whether to have that as a kind of tuck here. So I might do, so what I might do is just stick it down just on these two sides. So again, using my hot glue, on those two sides, just pop it down like that. Make sure it's glued down, get any little strands of the hot glue that might seep out of the edges, like that. And just pop a bit of glue under that corner. Don't really like it when things are kind of you know, popping up. I don't like that, so I'll just stick that down. Right, so there we've got that. So up there. Just before I stick that down, I will just double check that I'm happy with that, because obviously I have been using these sweet little die cut pieces as well. So it may be that actually I've got something else that might look kind of nicer, or just kind of different. We've got that one that says thankful. That's quite nice. Let me just distress ink that. The time absolutely flies when doing these videos, I must say. I mean, I think I said before, I kind of find it actually easier to work, strangely enough, doing these videos, because obviously I'm kind of distracted by having to constantly talk. So despite what it may appear, I'm actually not overthinking things to the extent I maybe would otherwise, you know, which is actually really helpful, and actually obviously, you know, speeds things up quite a bit. And last week, I think it was, I did a video, you know, one of these process videos, and it was the day that I did the two back to back, but I did upload them separately. And I was, you know, had a really dry throat because I've been talking kind of non-stop, and I went and got a drink. I couldn't believe it when I left, you know, the room to go and get my drink. And I just looked at my watch. I couldn't believe what the time was. The time had absolutely flown by. So it maybe doesn't fly by quite so much as a viewer, but it certainly flies by for me as the person doing the process videos. I really enjoy doing them, and I mean, I do find time flies by actually when I'm crafting anyway, to be honest. But obviously kind of being distracted because I'm chatting as well, you know, the time flew by even more. And yeah, I was quite shocked when I actually left the room and saw what time it was. So it was about 40 minutes ahead of where I expected it to be, which that's quite unusual for me because normally I'm somebody who kind of lives by the clock a little bit. Right, so we could do that, and I'm just wondering about kind of a dark pinkish kind of centre for this flower to kind of tie the colours in together a little bit. I don't really want another bow because obviously I've now got several bows around on the page, so I don't want to kind of overdo, you know, and it becomes kind of bow city. I've got another mulberry flower here that I just disassemble because maybe I could pop this in the centre of that flower, which would just kind of bring in the dark pink enough. Oh, come on. So again, very tedious for you watching me just pick this flower apart, I'm sure. Hold on. Oh, can't get it to come apart. I have to excuse my hands because I think I said in my last video I'd spent the weekend doing a bulk coffee dyeing session kind of out in the garden. So my hands are now very stained from the coffee dyeing kind of all around my nails, and you know, nothing seems to get it off for several days. I mean, obviously, you know, no matter how many times I've washed my hands and what have you, and actually I've obviously removed my nail varnish and repainted them and things, and still the coffee is still around them, so it's quite resilient to coming off. So got that flower there. Could pop that in there. I just distress ink that a little bit. Just take off that little straggly layer. Come out. Oh, come on. Right, let's distress ink that. So we could have that in there. You know, I just thought maybe a bit different from the flowers, but having said that, now I'm concerned that we have too many flowers. Right, let's pop this butterfly on. Let's go for him. And then obviously we've still got to fill this book with, just going to again, actually I'm not going to use the hot glue, I will use the wet glue for this. We've still got to fill this book with tags and, you know, what have you, which again, I will try and obviously kind of bring things a bit more ready-made so that you're not kind of having to watch that whole process, because yeah, I'm kind of a little bit concerned that obviously this is very boring for people. You know, just from kind of views on the video, I guess they've kind of gone down, and it could be that obviously because they're quite long that people are intending on watching but they just haven't got around to it, but it could be that people are kind of, you know, sick of watching this particular series. So I'm going to just pop this up here ready, and I might use that on the next page. So I'll bring these little sprig of flowers back like that, and then I can always have some lace or something at the bottom just to kind of finish the page off, you know, just kind of halfway along or in the middle. I'll just cut a bit of that. Yes, and it could be that obviously people are not enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying doing them. So, you know, I don't want obviously to really bore people. And of course, you know, people won't watch it if they're finding it boring. And I mean, I guess that's my point. Are people finding it boring? And that's why the numbers are kind of diminishing, you know, for the views. So I don't know. But now I've kind of said that we'll work on this journal together. I feel committed to kind of finishing it. And obviously, you know, thank you so much to those people who have commented and said they are still watching and still enjoying it, because it kind of gives me encouragement that, you know, it is worth actually continuing, because actually, you know, there are people out there who are still watching it and still enjoying it. Yeah, so we'll see how it kind of goes, but maybe kind of once this is done, perhaps I'll, you know, kind of learn my lesson and maybe not do one of these again. I'm not sure. It's very kind of difficult to pitch it, isn't it? And you know, obviously you don't want to think that you're, you know, boring people. And actually kind of, you know, even worse than that, turning people off your channel completely because they just think, oh gosh, you know, all her channel is doing is, you know, creating that journal that she's just endlessly creating or anything like that. So yes, it's very difficult, which is why I'm kind of a bit spurred on to try and actually speed this up and try and get it finished. You know, so we'll see. So right, so I've done that, and then we could just pop this piece of lace down here, or just in case that's a bit of an overdose of the pink, we could have a bit of ivory. Maybe the ivory is better. Just kind of concerned that it's a little bit, you know, too much of the dark pink then. Maybe that's better, because otherwise maybe it's kind of getting a little bit sickly. So I'm just going to again stick that down with the hot glue just for speed there. Okay, so that page is now done like that now, and I'm happy with how that looks now. So just quickly, we're up to 21 minutes, so that was pretty quick doing that page. Admittedly, it was only a single page, but what we'll do is we'll quickly do the following pages, which obviously I already had the things, kind of the basic things that I thought I would use on this page, and obviously we'll add to it kind of through this process, but you know, hopefully we'll kind of get through these, and then that's another couple of pages done. So I am just really waffling, and yeah. So I've got here, this is a stamped image on some of that transparency film that I love using, the kind of acetate and transparency film. I've used it, you know, a lot, and actually for a long time, because I used to use it in my mini albums too. But this one is a stamped image, not like my tutorial with the booklets, which were obviously printed images. So obviously you could, you know, could use these stamped images, and I thought this would be quite nice. This is just one of the DL size envelopes, which I've made a little pocket here with the scrapbook paper, and it's just got a little part of the Old Mother Goose rhyme. So I thought what would be quite nice is to actually have this tucked over like that. And initially I thought we would glue that on so it was kind of a bit interesting to kind of have something to lift up. But in hindsight, I think actually it might be better to have it where you can pull it out, because obviously then you can actually journal on this side of the transparency. I mean, the alternative would be to obviously cover the image like that, and obviously then if that was glued on, when you flip it up, I hope this is making sense, you could still journal on the back of it. So maybe actually that might be better. So what I've done, and I have bought this sheet of paper with me endlessly every single time that I've done, actually that's not going to work, sorry, scrap that and ignore me, because this is actually double-sided paper, so then it wouldn't really match the journal, so please ignore that suggestion. What we could do is, obviously I've just got some coffee dyed papers and things, so I mean we could use just some coffee dyed paper not quite so interesting obviously as the patterned paper. Although I have got a printed kind of section of it here, which actually looks very pretty, kind of showing through from the acetate. And then obviously when you fold it over, you've got the coffee dyed bits. Right, let's lay it out and then we'll decide. So I'm kind of thinking we've got this corner piece here for this side, which again, a bit of the Old Mother Goose, and it's a double pocket here. So what I'll do, I'm going to start by just distressing around the edge of the pink so that it's all kind of, you know, ties in nicely with the rest of the book. And I'll distress it quite a bit across here, because obviously if that's a corner pocket, we might see quite a bit of this pink on this page. And then this page, obviously, we're going to have that kind of envelope pocket, so we're not going to see so much of that. So it doesn't need to really be inked up in the centre particularly. It's more kind of the edges really. So I'll just ink around there. Okay. So I'll move my ink out the way a bit. So I thought this would go nicely down here, and obviously this piece over here. I have got the rest of that pale yellow doily, which I wondered about having somewhere. Maybe even just up there or something. Looks quite pretty. Obviously now I've got these two bits that we nearly used on the previous page, so I could have those kind of somewhere. In fact, they're quite sweet up there. And obviously I have the flowers that we've been using on every page also, so I could have them somewhere. And again, what I might do is actually cut them down so they're smaller. So I'll just cut around these, and actually weirdly this I think is the same kind of one as I just cut around for the previous page. Right, so I'm just going to literally cut this so I don't forget to do that later as well. I hope I'm still in frame. Again, I've obviously got the iPad up quite high, so it gets everything in, but that does mean that I can't particularly see what's going on, so it's kind of a wing and a prayer, hoping that everything is in frame. So we could have this down here, and then this one we could have kind of coming somewhere down the side, maybe like that. Now I've also got this little heart, which I thought was really nice. This is from the Kaiser Craft die cuts as well, so I could just distress ink around that. So we could use that somewhere. It's quite sweet, isn't it? And then, I mean, I quite like using, again, this is a bit like the frames, which I find really useful to use. Or I've got this shaped piece, which again, I like using these. Often I quite like using them, cutting them in half. So it's just literally stamped and then fussy cut out. But I quite like cutting them then into half, because sometimes I think they kind of fit better on a page then. So I mean, I think that's quite nice. And then what we could do is kind of have some trim somewhere. We could have a fabric ruffle. I do like having ruffles. Have a look. Thought I had some coffee dyed ruffles somewhere, so I have. So what we could do is have the ruffle somewhere kind of either along here, oops, along the side, or possibly down the bottom. Don't want to kind of cut the page and make it too small, if that makes sense, because obviously this is taking up a lot of the page, that if I pop that down there, it's making the page very narrow to me, I think. I don't know what everyone else thinks, whether you would agree with that. We could have this pink lace down the side, or we could have a kind of sprig of it just somewhere here. I did cut that small bit just now for the other page, so we could have that somewhere. It's nice to use things up, isn't it, when you've kind of cut them. We could have it that side actually, that's quite sweet, isn't it? Right, so what I might do is glue a few things on. So I might glue this doily down over here because I do like that. So again, I will just glue this, and I think I've said before, I know some people leave their doilies quite loose around the edges. I just don't seem to be able to get on with that because I then kind of end up catching them and tearing them. So I like to glue mine down kind of all over. So I'm just going to glue that like that. You know, so it's a little bit more rigid on there. And I'm going to just dress ink the flowers. Like this. I know that I had them at the side, but I'm just going to try them around before I make my final decision and kind of glue them down. Because it could be that it would kind of look better some other way. What I might do is glue this down so that this is all in place, and I might just glue this with the hot glue again, just because I'm trying to be a bit quicker. You know, ordinarily I would really use the wet glue, but just because I'm aware of time, I'm just going to kind of speed it up really. So just glue that down like that. There we go. So that then at least is kind of in place, and it's not going to be moving around while I'm trying out other things around the page. So I could have that like that, and like that. Let me just dress ink these flowers to pop across on the other page. Like that. So, I mean, I quite like that. And we were going to have this pink, weren't we? Possibly there at the bottom. It should be smaller just on the yellow part. Yes, maybe just on the yellow. So again, I will just glue this with the hot glue, just because, you know, again, trying to be quick. So just stick that like that. There we go. Okay. I'm just going to kind of hold these things around and kind of decide kind of how to have them. Again, we've got that one there. So we'll just kind of have a look and decide what kind of trim or lace or anything like that that we want on this side, you know, if we even want any. But having said that, I'd feel it was a little bit plain with nothing, I think. So I do like to have something somewhere. Otherwise it won't feel quite finished. We could have one of these pretty pink bows somewhere. I've got some smaller pink bows with me. It's funny because those first few episodes I kept on feeling the page was crying out for a bow, and I've actually bought some with me now, and every time that I've held them they don't really look quite right. So isn't that just typical? Absolutely typical. So what we could do down there is have some item from the Kaisercraft ephemera pieces, because that would maybe look quite nice. I was trying to hang on to some of them, and obviously there aren't that many left now, because a lot of them are grey and I didn't want to use the grey. But I'm trying to hang on to some of them so that when we kind of add our tags or booklets or paper pieces of ephemera, that actually I can use some of these on the paper pieces to kind of tie them into the journal. So that's why I've kind of tried to hold back a little bit from using, you know, some of these bits and pieces now, is because I'm actually trying to kind of save them so that, you know, we've got them to use obviously further down the line. But, you know, having said that, maybe one would be just ideal somewhere here. So we've got this half a piece that we'd cut in the last video, so we could have that somewhere. Or there's like these sentiments here. So best friends bring out the best in you. That's quite a nice sentiment, isn't it? So I might pop distress ink that and see how that looks. And obviously we don't have to use it. We can just distress ink it up and then decide. Like that. So we could have that. Oops, sorry, I just moved my scissors, which then made that big clonking sound. Could have them there, or we could have them on the yellow actually and have this down here. Maybe would be better. Or maybe this is the wrong thing to have there. Perhaps we should go back to this piece, or I have the other half of that we used a couple of episodes ago. So we could have that there. I quite like the pink on the yellow. I think that's quite pretty. So I'm going to go for it and glue that down. Gosh, I'm surprised the glue's still working, because actually I obviously forgot then to put the stick pin back into the tip of it. I will do that now though, because otherwise it won't work next time. I'll just stick that like that. And then if we were to have this like this, I don't want to cover up the text from the rhyme. We could have that like that. That's quite nice, isn't it? Or I have got a big file here of stamped things that I really like to use, you know, in my journals and things. So it may be that actually I've got something else that is kind of better, you know, to put there. So I will just double check, because I don't want to make the wrong decision, you know. So I will just double check that I haven't got anything else that maybe would be better in shape and size. I've got one of those barcodes saying amazing. I'd like those as well. I love using the French adverts and also the postcards. And then here I've got some tickets, which they're always really good. Just rummaging through here, just checking whether there's anything kind of better that just jumps out at me and grabs me instead. So roughly back through. Well, let's try a couple of those things then that we've got out here. So let's try. I mean, the frame, unfortunately, that's going to cover up the writing unless we have it kind of this way round. That might be quite nice. Let me distress ink the frame so it's kind of blending in a bit better. It is actually coffee dyed, but for some reason it's still quite white. Must have not been a very strong solution of the coffee dye when I did that. So we could have that there, because actually that does kind of fit in. We could have a smaller sprig of flowers and then that would kind of fit better, I guess. So we could kind of do it more like this. And we've got some crochet trim we could have either. So could have it like that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know I'm constantly saying this and it's just probably so tedious to hear, but I just love those frames, and every single time I place them down I think, oh, they just look awesome. So again, I'm finding myself thinking that straight away now. It's kind of, oh, I love the frames, they look so great everywhere they're placed. So I don't know whether you are thinking that, but I definitely, everywhere I put them, I love them. Actually, or I could use these flowers from the other side. And then use these ones over this side. No, I'm not going to do that. Right, let's place those back. Well, I quite like that with the frame and probably the smaller flowers, and then maybe the crocheted lace. So I'll just cut a piece of that again. And just a little length that again you could just kind of have placed there. I could even stick the frame on top of it. That looks quite nice, I think. And then I might use the small bow just somewhere, even maybe on the end of the crocheted lace. So let's get gluing some bits down. I'm going to pop this. Oh, I forgot now that I've got my stick pin in there. Right, let's pop this down like that. There we go. So hopefully I am in frame. I have just kind of glanced up. I can't see the whole of the iPad screen even when I'm kind of really stretching up. I've got a horrible feeling that wasn't really in frame, but hopefully it is now. Of course, maybe that's why people are tuning out. So we could have this here like that, or like this, probably like that. Okay. So again, I might just do this with the hot glue because you know, I'd like it to dry nice and quick. So I'll just pop that there, like that, and then the flower just stick there. And just stick it with the hot glue. I mean, that's the thing, the hot glue enables you to craft so much faster, doesn't it? And you know, it is brilliant from that point of view. Now, over on this page, I'm going to stick this crochet trim down first, because then that's kind of in place and not keep moving around. I'm still debating about the acetate piece, whether or not to have that, you know, with some paper underneath, because that would look really pretty, I think. So if I pop that there like that, I'm going to stick the bow on the end of the crochet. So what I do is just kind of hold those two little, you know, legs or sticks, as I like to think of them, hold them down and just pop some hot glue on, and then when I stick it down, it's just kind of then a perfect bow. Whereas obviously prior to sticking, you know, one of those legs or sticks is kind of sticking up the other way, but now it's stuck on there. It's nice and neat. And I make those ones with the fork method, so I could do a tutorial on those, but I'm sure you've probably already seen that. And then I got my husband to make me a kind of tool for my larger bows, which I will try and do a tutorial on those as well at some point. So, you know, if you'd be interested, because I do love using bows. I think they just add something really pretty and nice to a page, actually. Right, so we've got that stuck down here, and then going to stick this stuff down, so I might just pop the heart on there. Again, I'll just do it with the hot glue just to be really quick. Like that. Now, so I have this, which I had already folded into a kind of booklet, and obviously I had die cut along the edge. What I could do is obviously, you know, I could cut this section off and use this underneath here, because then when you lift it up, it would actually just be this polka dot paper. So room for journaling. So let's just have a look and see how that would actually kind of look on the page. In fact, I might have a small piece of that paper from another kind of fold out booklet thing that I had made, which would obviously give us a better idea. There we go, much smaller piece. So if I use that just to be able to kind of get an idea of how roughly that would look. That's better, isn't it, to be able to gauge that, whereas otherwise that big piece you couldn't really tell either way. So if that was to be like that, and obviously I could have this as low down as I could without the frame going over the words. So kind of there. I do think that that looks really nice, to be honest. Whereas it just gets a little bit lost when it's just the acetate. So let me have a look at this. I want to get as little of the kind of paisley shape as possible, so that I maximise on the roses rather than the paisleys. So I'm going to start by I'll cut this edge off. So, which is fine, because actually now it's still a kind of booklet. It just hasn't got kind of 3 flaps. So that's fine, I'll still be able to use that either on this project or somewhere else. Now, this question of now trying to get the least paisley in there, or the least noticeable paisley part of the pattern as possible. Maybe here. So maybe here is kind of looking good. Now, what I could do, I'm just now thinking out loud, so just bear with me for a moment. I could actually have it folding like a booklet on here. So I'm just literally playing with ideas here. So, you know, hope it's not really tedious again. Because obviously some of this is going to be stuck behind anyway, isn't it? So yeah, I could kind of do it like this. Now the only thing is, then I can't really kind of eliminate the paisley from the pattern so much, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? But I mean, having said that, I don't need it to be quite the size of the acetate. What I might do is have a look at the piece I have left, because actually, you know, if this is actually a better piece to use, then I will just use this piece. Because what I would actually quite like to do now, and this was not my original plan, is actually create another kind of folding booklet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this piece. So I'm going to cut down this edge, because actually this has still got now the fold from where it was a three-piece fold out. I'll just cut that like that. Get rid of that. And then I want to have it roughly the size of this, possibly slightly smaller, so kind of roughly here. But this might actually still be slightly too wide, but you'll see in a second. So get rid of that out of the way. Let's have a look. Right, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. So what I might do going to trim this because it wasn't very straight. Like that. This is really on the fly because I hadn't planned to do this at all, so I hope this works. It might turn out a disaster, which is always the worry, isn't it, when you kind of just do things completely ad hoc and haven't planned them at all. Right, just going to cut this edge because that also is not really running very straight at all. Okay, well that looks a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is actually fold this over, just roughly, but I want to have a little bit more at the front than the back. So I'm just going to kind of fold it like this. I haven't got my bone folder with me, so I'm just going to use the back of the scissors by folding that over like that. And then if I pop that on the fold like that, what does everyone think to that? I think that's pretty cute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to staple that in place. So I'll just hold it in place with my paper clip, and then using my stapler, which I'm sure probably won't reach, no, nowhere near in fact. So I'm going to hold it in two places because I really don't want it to move. I'm just going to fold this over slightly so that I can actually get to it, because the acetate's a little bit slippery, or a lot slippery actually. Just staple one there and one here. Gosh, I hope I'm in frame for all of this, because that would be so frustrating, wouldn't it, for you just watching nothing and hearing the stapler. So I think that's really nice, and what I could do is just to stress ink a little bit around the edge of there, just to kind of bring it in slightly more to the journal, like that. So then what I thought was, if I hook it over the back, and then what we've got is obviously a little kind of fold up booklet, which really nice then. So I quite like that. Hopefully kind of you guys do. Now the only thing is, obviously it is going to flap open, so we could use a paper clip at the top like that, so that when you come to use it you just take the clip off. But I quite like that. That's, you know, to me that seems quite nice. We could use the string, you know, coming around here, or, you know, however. But obviously I'm aware that we have now actually got quite a few things that are tied with string, so we might be going overboard with the string a little bit. We could have something, you know, holding it down kind of to the side, where it kind of sneaks under. The only thing is, because it has actually got the kind of 3 pages now, it's quite a bit for a piece of paper to hold. So I think probably the best option is in fact the paper clip. So I am going to just go, I think, for that. So I'm going to start by gluing the acetate onto the envelope. So I'm just going to hot glue that, because again, I'm just trying to do this nice and quickly. So I should just glue that down like this. Use my card, because obviously that's red hot through the acetate will just burn my fingers completely. You know, obviously I'm aware hot glue's not going to spread out as such, like in the same way that wet glue does, but equally just wanted to press it down, and I didn't really want to put my fingers straight on the red hot glue. So that's that. Like that a lot. And so I could obviously do an altered paper clip, but I might just spare you that for the moment. So, and we can always come back to that later depending on how the time factor is going. So I will just hold that at the moment just with a paper clip. I'm just rummaging through my box to see whether I had any slightly smaller paper clips. I only seem to have these giant ones at the moment, so I'm just going to use one of those at the moment, but I may come back to that and either do an altered paper clip or change it for a smaller one. So that's that, and we're going to have it like this. So what I'm going to do is glue it on through, I was going to say on 3 sides, but obviously then I won't be able to get the paper clip in to actually hold it closed. So what I'm going to do is glue it down here, here, here and here. So as we've got a pocket here in the side, but we've still got the slot at the top to be able to get the paper clip on. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And I'm going to kind of leave the frame down here so as I know roughly kind of where on the page this needs to go. So fingers crossed this is going to pan out. Okay, so we're going to pop that like that, and then I'm going to leave a fair amount to get the paper clip in like that. So just popping it down here like that onto the page. So then you've got obviously a pocket here, you've got a pocket here on the side, and you've also got a folding booklet. So I think that's quite nifty and, you know, worked out quite nicely. I hope that you all thought that that was quite fun to do, and, you know, quite a nice kind of different thing to do in a journal. I thought, yeah, I thought it was fun. So then what we'll do here is we'll just pop this frame down with some flowers. Not actually too sure which way up they're supposed to go, and I'm sure it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to again just glue the frame with the hot glue just for time purposes, like that. And just place it to one side because otherwise it was covering the word there. So there we go. So we could just have the flower there like that, and again I would just use the hot glue again just because I'm trying to do this a little bit speedier today. So we just pop that like that. So I think they're quite pretty. I quite like those pages. Obviously we have quite a lot of space here, so that's great because you've got obviously room for journaling. And obviously we're going to pop things in here. So I did bring along a couple of things today, just to kind of try out really. So I've got here this kind of trifold, it's just coffee dyed, I think it's watercolour paper with a stamped image on the front, and obviously just kind of folds out. And somewhere here I've got my corner rounder. So obviously I've already folded it up, and then what we can do is just round the edges. Just do that one again, please. Kind of. Obviously wasn't very straight at the top, but anyway, not to worry, it's all part of the charm, isn't it? So, and then we can round the corners at the bottom like that, and then just round these corners here like that, and then we can distress ink the edges of this a bit so it just ties in a little bit better. And I mean, actually what would be really beautiful on this is to colour in some of these flowers with some watercolour pencils, you know, that kind of toned perfectly with these fussy cut flowers. Obviously I definitely won't be doing that on these videos. I will spare you all that tediousness, but you know, we could have something like that in there. And I mean, if these flowers were actually coloured in, they would look really beautiful, to be honest, on that page. So, you know, that's the kind of idea really for kind of the future, I guess. So, you know, or could fussy cut a sprig of flowers and kind of pop them on there, would also be quite nice. And obviously I'm trying to save, you know, as I said, some of these Kaisercraft die cut shapes that then I'm going to be able to use on the kind of tags and ephemera and things that we're going to be using in here. So, you know, you could then have kind of some leaves or something. I mean, that's not the right piece for that, obviously. But, you know, you could kind of do something, although I actually think the watercolour pencils would be really nicest. you know, so now I'm hooked on that idea, I'm afraid. But again, we could just kind of attach this Sweet Treats little label there and kind of have that kind of going in like that. But, you know, we can play around with that when we come to do the tags, really. So, you know, that's just kind of playing around with some ideas. So, I mean, hopefully that page looks good to kind of people who've been watching along. Should we just pop that little flower in the middle of that? I think that's quite nice. So again, I'll just use my hot glue for speed. Just pop that in there like that. Okay, so I think that page is looking quite good. I'm quite happy with that. Hopefully you all quite like it also. Yeah, so we've done this page, and this one today. So we've achieved a fair amount today. So we now just have this double page spread left to go, and the inside of the back cover and the page before that, I think is it. And then we've just got these pages here left, but I'm not sure we want to do an awful lot with them because they are obviously quite flimsy paper as well, so they're not going to hold obviously great big heavy embellishments. So it might be that we just kind of leave them and maybe distress ink them a bit. You know, we could maybe just stick a teapot on or something like that, you know. We'll come to those kind of towards the end and decide what to do with those. So yeah, we haven't got much left to do now, you'll be pleased to hear. So just these two and these two. So, and then obviously we'll do the tags and the bits and bobs going in it and the cover. And as you can see, I mean, it's shaping up to be pretty chunky now. But a really beautiful and interesting book, I think. So, you know, I hope that you are enjoying it if you are following along. So, okay. Thanks very much for watching, and see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.